your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
I think you all know that I've always felt the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Yeah, so like you said, I'm the youth pastor at Grace, and we just recently moved here from Tennessee.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that was a good time.
How long did you live in Tennessee?
5 years.
5 years.
5 years, yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, we had a good time there, and then moved up here we live in the Pottstown area.
Nice.
Yeah, it's been cool.
Yeah, awesome. And then for when you became youth pastor for our church and stuff like that, did you always envision yourself as a youth pastor, or is that the direction you always were going towards and stuff like that? Or is that kind of like something that you think God led you to?
Yeah, so I think I've gone through a lot of different like iterations in my life of like, I think sometimes we think like serving God, like you have one thing that you're going to do and that's what we're going to do the rest of my life. Like,
Yeah.
So at one point in time, it was like, I'm going to be a missionary overseas. So I had a really big heart for the country of Ireland and praying for them a lot and that kind of thing.
That's
and
awesome.
I went on mission trips over there. I thought that's where I was going to go. And then the opportunity to become a youth pastor in New Hampshire came up. So me and my wife, I met my wife there. But we were youth pastoring there for a while. And then we moved to Tennessee and I was just working in the corporate world. And I thought that was going to be
Nice.
This is where I'm at for the rest of my life. Like I'm just going to work in corporate, like in a corporate job.
Yeah.
I don't need like, I think ministry had become kind of an idol to me. So I think for me, it was like, I don't need ministry. I want to just focus on raising my kids.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We were like we hadn't been married that long. We had young kids on the way. Like we had Annika was there already, but we had like Emma on the way. So we were like, let's take some time. And while we were in Tennessee, we were just volunteering with the youth. There's a lot of story there, but yeah, we volunteered with the youth. And I think, up until the day before I applied for the church, I thought I was just going to be a volunteer working with youth.
Yeah.
And just as like a mentor figure, and then just kind of working in corporate America. And I thought that was what I was called to. But when the opportunity to come to Grace came up, we felt very strongly that was like the direction God was calling us to. And so that's kind of where I'm at.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah. Because like, yeah, I think you bring up a good point though, because so many people, especially from our context, so many people go to Bible college and they automatically think, oh, I'm going to be a pastor for the rest of my life. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. But like, I think that there's just different seasons that God calls us to. It's just reality,
Well, yeah.
Like,
and I mean, you think about it, like we make it so inflexible. We live in a world that's very like it flexes all the time. There's stuff changes and life changes
all the time.
And, the situation to like be a U.S. missionary, like, or like be a missionary overseas, like that heart for missions is still there.
Yeah.
And like, I think like sometimes we take what God is doing in a season and we look at it because we're so passionate about it in that season, especially, or maybe I'll speak for myself. I was so passionate about it in that season. I was like, this is going to be my whole life.
Yeah.
I still have that passion for missions.
Absolutely.
But now my passion is how can I get teenagers involved
in missions?
Yeah. How do I get other people involved in missions? How do I be somebody that can like advocate and support missions here in the States?
Yeah.
Because that's a super important.
Yeah. Because it's like, because I think that the biggest thing for missionaries and for people who might feel like they're called to be missionaries, sometimes they just simply need that support.
Yeah.
Of just someone being like, okay, I know you're called to this, and I'm going to hold your hand every step of the way so that and can have a confirmation as to why you're called to this.
Yeah.
Because I think many times people get discouraged sometimes because they're like, okay, I'm called to whatever it is, but I feel like I don't have someone in my life to do that. And I think that that's just as important as simply going.
Well, and it also like, even on a deeper level for that, like, I think sometimes people are like, I went to Bible school, I have this degree.
Yeah.
And I felt like that in Tennessee a lot of times. I was like, I have this degree that I'm not using. Like my degree, and now I'm like renting cars.
Yeah.
Or I'm managing a healthcare like company's like account. you know, like, and so you think like, okay, like, did I waste my time? Did I miss God? Not realizing that all of these things work together.
Yeah.
Like if I hadn't gone to Bible college, I wouldn't have met my wife.
Yeah.
You know, and she's the best. And I wouldn't have my kids. And I wouldn't have learned the lesson I learned, because when we moved to Tennessee, we moved back close to her family. But it was the first time I had ever seen a functioning, like, healthy youth pastor in like my whole life.
Wow.
So it's like, now as a youth pastor, I'm super grateful for that, like, that experience.
Exactly. Yeah.
'Cause
Because you
it's
got
like-
to see it firsthand of like how it's supposed to be done, how a healthy youth pastor is supposed to interact with like the group and with the church, and just
Yeah.
how they're supposed to work together.
When you see a youth pastor that's been doing it for 15 years at the same church,
Exactly.
like, that's not everybody's story, you know? And like for me, like, I had youth pastors that came and went.
Yeah.
That didn't like me, you know, that told me so. Like, I had very dark youth group experiences. Like, it wasn't like until like our senior pastor of the church at the time, like, kind of took an interest in me and like loved me and cared for me. But that was like the only healthy, like, ministry person I had seen. I hadn't seen like a youth group, like, where there were students that were like passionate about Jesus, and like, that was something that like changed. And so like, I think we see those those experiences. If I hadn't gone through that season of lost, like, aimlessness, I wouldn't be able to like have learned what I learned, where now I'm coming in here and it's like, I kind of have an idea, like a vision of like what God is wanting us to do and like a direction to go. And
Yeah.
so that's super exciting.
No, that's super exciting. And yeah, and so like a little bit of what I wanted to talk about today is primarily just like how you think from the perspective of just like a youth pastor, and just, you know, in our conversation of just like, where do we think the future generations are going up from, like Generation Z into like the COVID baby generation and stuff? Because so oftentimes I think that society doesn't realize that major changes are coming in just the way generation sees society, the way society will be run ultimately. Because the thing is that there's a lot of different political tensions that pull attention, especially from the younger generations. And I think that there's something to be said about that. The church's influence now is going to be something of the sort of just like being so monumental and being so much more important than ever before. Because with at least the past generations, right, like with millennials, with Gen X, with the baby boomers, there was more of a context of like a cultural Christianity, you know what I mean? So like a lot of people went to church, a lot of people had a concept of faith, of Jesus, all these different things. And now we're entering this context of, and like, granted, is the church like dying off? No, I don't think it is.
Yeah.
But I do think that there has been this shift of, unless you were born into that context, you aren't as heavily influenced by Christian influences. At least in ever since like 2000s and when Gen Z came on the scene and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think definitely, like, I think with the millennials, I mean, you have such a vast difference in millennials. So like when you're talking about millennials,
100%.
you have the older millennials, which I would say grew up in church. Mainly, I would say a lot of like younger millennials and
Because they kind
older-
of blend into Gen Z.
yeah,
kind of.
older Gen Z. I think there was a lot of like people left the church.
Oh yeah.
So like a lot of them are raised without, but I think we're seeing actually right now, there was a study that came out that Gen Z is called the open generation. They're more open to spirituality than ever before. Not necessarily Christianity, but like the postmodern idea of, we're past religion. We've already moved past religion. I don't think is so true for Gen Z anymore. I think for Gen Z and Gen Alpha, there's an openness that there's something more. They're seeing more and more. They're seeing something's not working.
Yeah.
With the it's all about me.
Yeah. Mentality.
Because
I mean, that's been kind of like an attitude accepted. Because like, as you said, actually, let me go back a little bit, because like, is it true that the oldest millennials are in their early 40s now?
Yeah.
Something like that? Like,
Yes.
yeah, that's insane to think about. So like,
Old. No, I'm kidding.
old.
Just kidding, just kidding.
I'm 24 for context. So to me, that sounds old. But the thing is, though, is that like, I think it's, because as you said, I think that's a good way to think about it, because I think a lot of younger millennials are the half generation that kind of fell away from the church. And I think that is an apparent sign of just like, compared to Gen Z is like very open, as you said, and Gen Z, like for instance, a good example is like when you enter a bookstore, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a huge religion section. You have the Bible, you have the Quran, you have Buddhist teachings, you have multiple other things. You have a whole aisle dedicated to like witchcraft and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, but it's because of those trends, it's because of the trends of these younger generations being interested in that there's something beyond just me. There's something beyond just this materialistic world.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just
think culture kind of bends that way. Like you look at it like life kind of, I feel like culture kind of goes in a circle.
Mm-hmm.
And you can argue whatever reasons for that, but I think oftentimes what one generation witnesses in the older generation that isn't working, I think oftentimes like, or even like isn't pure.
Yeah.
Like I think oftentimes the younger generations want to rebel. So like personally, like watching like a church, like there was a church environment that I was in that was unhealthy when I was really young, and I watched like some crazy stuff happen in church. That made me, as a 10, 11-year-old, not want to be involved in church.
Like not want
I
to.
wanted nothing to do with it. Like, if this is your God, I don't want that. And I think Gen Z, like the younger generations, the next generation, they're looking for authenticity. They're looking for real. And what they're trying, like what the world is trying, what culture is saying to try is going to give them, what they want.
Yeah.
It's not satisfying.
No, it isn't. And like you have the pool of, like a good example is this, right? At least from online, granted, these aren't studies, these aren't anything. This is just stuff that I've witnessed, that I've kind of noticed. But it seems as though that there is this pool of Gen Z, and it's kind of weird, and we're going to get into this in the political side too, of just the fact there seems to be this gender division within Gen Z, of the fact of like trends aren't being like for instance, like 50-50 or 75-25. It's actually being kind of predicted through gender. Yeah. Like for instance, a good example is I'm seeing a lot of Gen Z men and boys being more interested in like tradition, being more interested in the Catholic Church, orthodoxy, and just Christianity in general. And you see, and I'm not saying all Gen Z women at all, but you see a trend of Gen Z women being more progressive, being more inclined to like explore spirituality and stuff like that, of other religions and stuff like that. And obviously there's like a ton of Gen Z women that are obviously interested in Christianity. That's not what I'm saying. But the point that I'm saying is that the trends are interesting to follow, at least from the political standpoint, because that's the thing that I really look at a lot, of this huge shift in the way gender's almost split up and divided in Gen Z in particular. And I don't know, like if you notice that, but I think that's interesting at the very least.
Well, I think a lot of that, like for me, like that comes down to algorithms. Like what is pushed is often, I mean, you had for years, you had this like Andrew Tate form of like masculinity that was pushed on very young, impressionable men. Yeah. And so now they're like, there's going to be people that are kind of go, there's going to be young boys that kind of go one way where they're very like, hey, like this is like very like hyper traditional. Yeah. And then you're going to have some that are like looking for a balance, but like to say like that red pill movement that we saw on the internet was so impressionable to young men that it's actually kind of created like a conservatism in their culture. Yeah. And the divide between the genders has kind of grown. Yeah. Meanwhile, you have like for a lot of women, like young women, like they're young girls, they're getting pushed like this idea of what femininity is supposed to be, and they're getting pushed an idea of what masculinity is that's completely opposite to what is being pushed to their classmates.
Yeah.
So now you're like they have two different versions of femininity, two different versions of masculinity, and as we kind of have existed in these echo chambers of our own internet algorithms, anything that kind of comes in from the other side is the enemy. And so we've kind of created this, the division keeps getting bigger and bigger. So I think it makes sense that like we've created this almost like dichotomy between the men and the women.
Yeah. And like, there's something to be said about the fact that these echo chambers, I think, create a toxic version of all of those things.
Oh yeah. 100%.
Because like you brought up Andrew Tate, for example, no offense, and I pray for his salvation. I hope that he like comes to Christ, but like, what a terrible human being.
Yeah, a lot of really,
he's
like,
very toxic
yeah.
about like towards women. He's very toxic towards his beliefs and stuff like that. And it's not to say that there isn't tiny, small, minuscule like truths that he says, but those are the little hooks that draw people into inviting a toxic version of that. You know what I mean? Like, because like a good example is like, for instance, like, why do you think Hitler was so influential with the youth in Nazi Germany? Because there was little bits of truth that he fed them to sell them the big lie.
Yeah.
And that's just the unfortunate side of these small algorithms, these small echo chambers, as you said, because people are fed these little truths that lead them into this bigger lie without looking at everything else.
Well, like if you're able to feed enough of those like small things to change the perception enough, it's really, I think all those little truths do is it helps try to shift the perception enough. And we see that in a lot of different facets of politics with younger generations, is if they can shift the perception enough, then it's easier to get them from, well, like, yeah, like we'll kind of like live our own separate life to like that person is the enemy.
Yeah.
That group is the enemy because, I see all these things like, you see like those like, at all the protests, you have people that go and like they interview, and they often interview like they post like the interviews that are like the craziest interactions.
Yeah, exactly.
Which then creates the perception every single person in that group
is crazy.
Yeah. And they do it with Christianity. They do it with all these different different religions. But I feel like we're so divided because we listen we listen to our algorithm at like I talked about it at church on Sunday, but it's like. And it's because a diseased mind has no control over its own judgment. It thinks whatever anger suggests must be right.
Wow.
So often the way I've interpreted that quote is when I'm angry at something, I feel right.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm justified in being angry.
Yeah.
And then now the person I'm angry at, it's not just, oh man, maybe this is on me. Maybe this is just my emotions getting the best of me.
Yeah.
It's you're my enemy because you've made me angry and I'm right.
So I feel like that happens. I mean, I feel like that happens to all of us all the time. I think it happens to me all the time because it's like, I think that you bring up a good point because it's like what gets the most clicks and likes? It's not the normal interviews. It's not a simple conversation, a nice civil conversation between a Democrat and a Republican. That does not get clicks and likes. Right. You know what gets clicks and likes? You interview the person who's mentally unstable in the group, and the group might be a decent group. You know what I mean? It might be a decent group of people protesting for something that's right? But you end up interviewing this one mentally unstable person, and then you assume that everyone else is mentally unstable or something like that.
Yeah. And rage bait is like a huge thing. If you can get the people to get mad, like, oh, that person, like, I was watching a video and it seemed pretty innocuous to me, but like, it was a normal interaction. Yeah. And under the comments, it's, oh, this is all this group. This is all this group. Yeah. This is all this group. And it's like, hey guys, that's wild that we like have gotten to this point where even a moderately inconvenient interaction has become a way to slander all groups.
Oh,
like, all men or all women.
100%. Yeah. You know? I think that's the thing, because like that's the one thing I tried to be generous with, of the fact of like, that's why I don't try to categorize all Republicans one way, all Democrats one way, all even liberals one way, because I think it's important to give like the generous grace or the generous like realization of, guess what? Not everyone's experience is the same.
Yeah.
Not everyone's like belief is the same. Like someone might be in a certain political party, but it might not be for the reasons you think.
Yeah.
Like as an example.
I don't think we give people enough grace to recognize that somebody can be authentically wrong.
Oh, 100%.
And totally like have the best intentions, mean the best with it, but be wrong.
Yeah. And this is actually something I was texting someone about, because we were like debating I think it was like socialism or something like that. Yeah. But it was a cool interaction with him, because the one thing that I said to him is the realization of the fact that the only real evil you can do is claim ignorance. The moment you start choosing ignorance is the moment you've lost, is the moment that you have actually embodied evil, I believe, because you're not willing to hear the other side. You're not willing to actually think through like the complications of, human belief, of human experience and all these different things. But that's something that I hold to, because it's like, I could be wrong. I could be wrong about so many things and I don't even know, and I think that's a perspective that can be changed for different people. Like, I mean, a good example would be like, if I know a scientific fact that you don't know, and I share that fact with you, you're like, no way. So you Google it, and then you find out that I was right. Right?
Yeah.
You didn't know that until you finally saw the facts. And so I think that's just the majority of people. That's every single one of us, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and it's also, we're incentivized socially to feign knowledge when we don't have it.
Yeah.
I think often we're like, oh, like I could talk from like, I have to like, if I'm in an argument with you and we're debating, like, I don't know, what would we debate? What would be an argument we could have?
What would be an argument?
Trying to think of something to argue with you about, but you're just such a nice guy. Oh man. But like, I don't know how crazy do we want to get out here?
We could go euthanasia.
The euthanasia. We could talk. If say we're debating about euthanasia, right? And I don't know something, and you bring up a fact. It is often like incentivized in the context of the argument, especially when a lot of the interactions we see, like those kind of arguments and stuff, is online in front of a crowd. Yeah. Right. So like I'm incentivized to act like I'm right.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And so like, I think this goes back to like what the next generation is really looking for. They're looking for authenticity. I think there's something powerful about us being able to like kind of step back and be like, this is why I believe what I believe.
Exactly.
And like, while I'm confident in it, like, I'm not like saying that like there's no like, I'm not saying I know everything.
No.
Like this is just the best of my knowledge. This is the best of my ability to like seek truth.
Yeah. And I think that that's like a constant journey of, there's a saying that says, if you put your ladder up against a wall, but the light bulb isn't up where you put your ladder up against, you're not going to be able to change the light bulb. Why? Because the light bulb's in the middle of the room. It's not on the side of the wall. Yeah. And so it's just like this like little allegory to say, when you're trying to seek truth, or when you're trying to find out what the truth is, the worst thing you can do is put up your ladder where the light bulb isn't. Yeah. And so, I think that for us Christians, right, I think there's an element where we're able to kind of start somewhere when we're trying to seek truth in something. Yeah. So like if something is happening in our culture, where do we turn? We're going to turn to the Bible. We're going to pray about it, because we're not going to, sure. Are we influenced by the opinions of people around us? Like whether it be our political parties that we vote in, or whether it be just our friends and stuff like that, obviously. Yep. But I think for us Christians, we automatically should, because some people don't, right, should have the inclination to be like, okay, but what does God say? What does the Bible say? And the thing is that many people misconstrue the idea of seeking God's truth and seeking who he is, because he is the truth, as some type of way for me to be like self-righteous. Right? Yeah. But the thing is that with Christianity, I'm actually admitting I don't know anything of the truth. So I have to seek the truth, which is, obviously Jesus. But I think it's interesting, though, as I said, though, because many people view that as, oh, I'm trying to use religion to my benefit.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm actually trying to seek what God might convict me of. Because if I'm wrong, he's going to convict me to change my ways, to change my thinking, you know? So it's just the idea of, from that perspective, I guess, like, how do you think these younger generations are responding to God, whether it be like Gen Z men or Gen Z women?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I don't know, from my like perspective, I mean you've said it, like a lot of Gen Z like men are seeking traditional church, high church.
They are.
As they say, like that's not just Catholic, that's not just Orthodox, that's like Anglicanism, that like high church ideas.
Why do you think that is, actually? Because I'm interested in that, because for me, I've always grown up Pentecostal.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm kind of interested to see, because like, you know, even for me during the whole trend of like my own generation being interested in the high church, I can actually appreciate more things of the high church because of that trend, because I got to learn more about church history. I got to learn more about certain saints that came right after the apostles and stuff. But what do you think is the main pull to like high church and traditions like that?
Yeah, I think the pull is there's the safety rails are there.
Yeah.
Like Pentecostalism is scary. It is scary.
Oh,
like,
I mean, it's funny.
I am a Pentecostal minister. I believe in the gifts. I am charismatic. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But Pentecostalism can be very scary.
Yeah.
When you see such a vast, like wide array of what Pentecostalism is. And a lot of times you see like the picking up snakes. Like,
I was about to mention that.
Yeah. Like, so you have like people like these,
yeah,
you know, and then there's safety rails. Like I graduated Bible college with people who like went into like non-charismatic denominations as ministers or sought that level. And like, at one point I was going that direction because there is a safety in the tradition.
Yeah.
There's a safety in
because it's been
guardrails.
practiced for centuries.
Yeah. And they'll say nothing's changed for centuries, you know, whether you agree with that or not. I would disagree on certain things,
Yeah.
But as a whole, it feels like there's a guardrail, there's a safety rail.
Yeah.
The seatbelt is on. So I'm safe from like that kind of like getting out of control.
Yeah, definitely. Because I feel like Pentecostalism, at least in America, has actually just stayed kind of static. No, it's not. I don't think it's stagnant.
I think.
Don't get me wrong, but I think it's static.
The Assemblies of God is one of the I would say is one of the few growing churches post
COVID.
Yeah. So it's like.
But that's the world, right? Or does that count America?
I think that was the world.
The world, okay.
Yeah. I'd have to pull up the study. I don't have it on me right now, so I can't speak for
You're
sure.
good.
But no, I think there's like we're growing,
Yeah.
you know, and like our movement is growing. But also, I think you look at I also think there's like a level to younger generations tend to pull away from the previous generation. I think young people, we have like. The younger we are, we have this like rebellious like idea of like
100%.
when I was 17 years old, I was the smartest I've ever been in my life because I was so confident that I knew everything better than everybody. Everybody else was dumb. Not that I was actually the smartest person.
No, yeah.
Man, I was so confident in myself.
Yeah.
You know, and in my early 20s, when I was graduating Bible college, I could have, I was the man. I knew everything. And it's like, as I got older, it's like, you kind of realize like, oh, there's a lot that I don't know. There's a lot that kind of like a lot of wisdom that comes with age.
Yeah.
But there's like that, like I watched what my parents did.
Yeah.
You know, or I watched what the church that I went to growing up did.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't feel like they were living out the principles they preached. And so I went the opposite way.
That makes sense.
So I think like there's this like young people, and I would say that this is the trend for every generation.
Yeah.
But the way that manifests is different. But I think at the core of it, we're all trying to look for truth. And we also have this like innate desire to rebel against our authority figures.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So it's like you have this like, oh well, like if you grew up in a Christian home, are you more likely to be Christian? Are you more likely to walk away from Christianity? I don't know the stats on that.
No, I don't either.
But yeah, sorry to take it over. I'm not like 100%, but no, I think there's a rebellious idea of like they're not living out their authentic, like what they say is their faith. They're not living it out. And so you're looking for truth. And I think some generations go the opposite direction. They're like, well, like for me, I'm going to go to the opposite end. I'm going to go to atheism.
Yeah.
To try to find, and like new atheism was like really popular around the time that I was going through that.
Yeah.
So new atheism was kind of where I landed at that point. Now, I mean, traditional church, high church, like traditional values are actually kind of on the rise, especially among young men.
Yeah.
So I mean, like we kind of are in this cycle of very conservative, moderately conservative, progressive, and then it just like we constantly are in that hamster wheel.
Yeah. I think that's the truth, because I mean, I think you look at who God is, right? He's the only thing that stays constant in our lives.
Yeah.
We are like dust in the wind. We get thrown this way and that way.
Yeah.
My emotion today might be totally different tomorrow. Like it's just,
100%.
we're human. But the thing is that I think that when people are able to reconcile themselves to God and not necessarily tradition, because I think there's a huge difference between people reaching for tradition versus actually reaching for God.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a huge number of these people who like, and I think that God is going to reveal himself to these people who are seeking tradition, right? Yeah. But I do think that there is a number of people that seek the tradition, but they're not really seeking God, if that makes sense.
Yeah, maybe.
Because as you said, they're kind of seeking that guardrail.
Yeah.
Because they're fearful.
Well, and also like if you live a life in chaos, you're looking for order, you're looking for, which is why maybe like some of those people that are looking for order aren't going to go to like a charismatic church.
No.
Like now, granted, I think that there are a lot of amazing charismatic churches that do a great job at both being spirit filled and being spiritual without having no guardrails.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great churches out there that do well with that.
Yeah.
And I think, man.
I mean, I
think there's people that are like they're reaching out for order instead of like chaos. So like you're gonna try to go somewhere where that promises order, especially because a lot of these people are looking for something higher than themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
And they just haven't had an encounter with Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the truth though. They're looking for Jesus. They just don't know where to look right away.
Yeah.
And honestly, like
that's
for some people, for some people, like Orthodoxy and Catholicism is probably the only thing they come in contact with.
Yeah.
Which is,
And don't get me wrong, Orthodoxy and Catholicism, like for all of the theological disagreements that I'd have with them, there's a lot of very strong, loving Christians in those in those
Absolutely,
strains of Christianity. So I think like people find Jesus where they're at.
Exactly.
So Jesus will meet them where they're at.
Because Jesus isn't limited to a denomination.
Yeah.
I think it's sad when people are like, oh, well, you don't believe like my church, so you aren't a Christian. It's like, no.
To be fair, the Orthodox and the Catholics would hold to that.
They do. They would.
But no, on a real note, like I think there's something beautiful about Jesus just meets us where we're at. And so, that can be anywhere. That could be in a Catholic church. That could be in a charismatic church. That could be anywhere. You could be in a McDonald's parking lot.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the cool thing about Jesus is he meets us where we're at. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's cool that's just the case. I mean, without grace, where would we be?
Right.
Where would we be?
Not far.
The other thing I wanted to bring up too, because like I feel like because it's my own generation, so I know a lot about Gen Z, but like from the perspective of someone that's seeing like the next generation coming up, right? Because you're a millennial, so you kind of got to see Generation Z come up.
Yeah.
But from the perspective of actually seeing a generation rise up, like Generation Alpha, and the oldest being like 16, something like that.
Yeah.
Like, I can see why generations like to blame other generations for problems, or not problems, but like not blame them, but like kind of like pick at them, because you're like, well, you're just a iPhone, like an iPhone baby or something like
yeah, iPad babies,
iPad babies, an iPad kid. But like, I guess like it's interesting to see the way a Generation Alpha has been influenced, because they're the first, because like at least with me, right? I grew up, even though I grew up with the influence of the internet, because the internet was already around by then, like, it's not like I had constant use of it. It's not like I had constant, like a screen in front of my face all the time. But with Generation Alpha, they kind of like had a screen in front of themselves from the moment they were born, basically.
Yeah.
And so how do you think that's going to basically transform them? Because you see, like, as a good example, right? Some parents talk about how like their 5-year-old or their 3-year-old knows how to use their phone better than they can.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane to think about. Like, they can't even talk over here. They can't even have like 4-syllable words, but they're over here like doing things that their parents don't even know how to do on the phone.
Yeah.
Like,
humans are so good at adapting to different environments.
Yeah.
And the earlier on that you adapt, like they get that stuff in front of them, the quicker they are to adapt, for sure. Yeah, man. What was that question?
No, sorry. I was just saying, like, how do you think like iPads, the influence of just like a screen being basically constantly in front of their face, is going to influence the way they see the world? Because in some ways, at least from my opinion, right, I think that they're going to see the internet as basically the real world. Like, because at least for Generation Z, we see the world, at least from my perspective, I see the world from two realities. It's like the online world and the real world. But everything has become so intertwined with the internet that I really believe the Generation Alpha is going to see the internet as reality. Like, this is reality and this is it.
I think most people are already in that kind of vein. Like, that real world is becoming less and less of a thing that we experience, and the real world is just a place where we, like, I feel like it's just where we manifest we've already feel about what's going on online. Like, we hear, and this is like where you have a million different news sources covering different things that cover, from different angles. And, now AI is getting so, like, it's getting a lot better. I'm not saying it's great. Like, young people, we're still good at being able to figure out, okay, like, that video is AI.
Listen, sometimes though, but can't tell.
It's getting better.
That's why I stay off Facebook, because I'm just like, this is scary. Yeah,
the AI is getting better. So, like, I mean, there's something very dangerous about not being able to check and like what's real. Yeah. Not being able to know if what I'm looking at is reality. And
because right now it's starting with jokes.
Yeah.
But I think later on there's going to be huge.
Well, it always starts with jokes.
It always starts
with jokes, and then it becomes a part of the culture. Like memes did that. Memes were jokes. They were just internet jokes, and now memes are so ingrained in our culture. Now I'm a big fan of some of the jokes and some of the memes and stuff. So, like the 6'7", like a big 6'7". I think it's hilarious, like, but I mean, there's something to the, like, when we can't even tell what's real. Yeah. Like, and you could put an iPad in front of somebody and be like, man, did you see what happened over here in so-and-so country? Like, there's no way to verify that's what actually happened. Not trying to get into like a conspiracy or anything, but like,
no, it's true.
They don't have a way of verifying. And so our reality is what's presented in front of us, which is why that divide of politics gets wider and wider, because we're all looking at different sources. And when you're looking at different sources, you're 100%. Like, well, this is the truth. This is the truth. This is the truth. And it's like, both these things can't be true, but how do we verify?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
I think that's actually why some conspiracy theories have actually become fact for some people.
Yeah.
Because, and I'm not like the type of person that's like, oh, it's just information. I love conspiracy theories. I'm like, I think that's why so many people make conspiracy theories like a part of their reality, because it's easier to cope with fiction than it is with reality.
Well, and also
in a way, because then you can blame someone, you can blame a group, you can blame an elite group of people that have no accountability. And, in reality, yeah, sure. Do a lot of the elite of the day have a lot of influence? Yes. But they're humans. They're as dumb as we are.
Yeah.
I mean, are they probably smarter? Yeah, sure. But
Probably
are they
smarter than me anyway.
they're just like us. They make mistakes like us.
Yeah.
Like don't give them enough credit as they actually need it.
Yeah.
You know?
I
Give them too much credit.
Well, I think like for like the younger generation, I mean, you also have like this idea, like because younger generations really value justice and like social, like being able, like my children all the time, like maybe they're a little bit younger than Gen Alpha, but they're very much why isn't life fair? Now, granted, they're 6 and 5, but
Yeah.
you know, young kids, and I feel like we all have that. Like, we want fairness.
Oh yeah.
We want justice to happen.
Yeah.
And so, like, you put a screen in front of kids and you tell them, hey, this is all of this, like, not saying there's not, because there's a lot of injustice out there.
Oh, there is.
You're
Yeah.
But you put a screen in front of them and you're like, it almost like, I feel like for the younger generations, next gen is getting beaten down with the idea that everything is doomed.
Doomers.
The world is doomed. Everything is doomed.
Yep.
You know, and like,
I think COVID actually played a part of that.
right. Well, and it's like every 5 minutes, like if you're a millennial, like it feels like every 5 minutes, every 3 years, like there's a new, this is the end of the world. This is the next thing that's going to end. And, you know, it's continued to like, what I experienced is like, you know, third grade on from like basically from 2001 onwards was just like crisis after crisis after crisis.
Yeah.
Gen Z, it's been crisis after crisis after crisis.
Yeah.
Whether we agree to the extent of which crisis and where they're going, but like
crisis.
when you raise entire generations with this idea that there is no hope, I think this actually kind of gets back to why people are going to churches.
Yeah.
And like why spirituality, they're so open, because when you're told there's no hope, you're looking for hope.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you're looking for like, where's the life raft?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because I'm getting drowned by our culture every day.
Yeah.
You know, like, so I think that's where Jesus comes in. I think that's where like people going to church and looking. Now, as Christians, we have an opportunity to be like, to be true Christians.
Yeah.
Like actually like
to be real about our faith and be real about, I mean, just,
are we living it out?
Yeah, exactly. Are we living it out? And I think that the worst thing that we can do as Christians is kind of like have this pessimistic attitude too.
Yeah.
And getting too wrapped up in politics, getting too wrapped up in the culture. Because, I mean, who does God call us to be first and foremost? He calls us to be a son and daughter of the high king. Yeah. He doesn't call us to be Republican, Democrat.
Yeah.
He doesn't call us to be like
a
part. Like, he calls us to be in the world.
Yeah.
But he doesn't call us to be part of it.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's not to say, like, don't vote. I'm a huge proponent of voting. Like, don't get me wrong. Yeah. But there is something to be said about the fact of, is my party or is my political opinion or just my opinion more important than my faith? No.
Yeah. Or is my political, like the way that I live out my politics, is my purpose politics, or is my purpose Jesus, and politics is just part of the way that I live that out? I think that's why I stayed away from politics for a long time.
Yeah.
In my like late 20s, because it was like, man, I love Jesus, and I just want to focus on Jesus.
Yeah.
But it's like, now there's like a way to live that like out politically, but like, we've also got to be authentic. Like
100%.
Everybody's looking for authenticity in their faith and in their life. Like, people can tell if you genuinely are authentically touched by Jesus.
Yeah.
People can tell the difference.
Exactly.
And it's like, if we're focused so much on like the doom, and we're yelling at and arguing with people in the Facebook comments every time there's a video we don't like, you know, or we're calling people names, like, that's not like, I think we're missing an opportunity to like, I think God has placed in front of Christianity, like in front of Christians, an amazing opportunity for revival to happen.
Oh yeah.
And we're seeing it like with the post Charlie Kirk assassination. Mm-hmm. We're seeing like a lot of people flocking to churches.
100%. Because like that's the thing too. Like, many people act like all these different events after Charlie Kirk getting shot are mostly political. I would actually disagree.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of the like ceremonies, vigils, whatever that you want to call them, a lot of these memorial things for Charlie Kirk have actually been very religious.
Yeah.
Like, 80% of it.
Well, and a lot of
like,
and a lot of the next generation is sees that, like, it's all, and obviously there's like a whole different, like, there's two sides of like the way people view Charlie Kirk, for sure.
Yeah.
But like maybe three sides. But I think what people like, what the younger generation is seeing is like there was a clear, okay, like, we're gonna check out this Jesus that this guy is talking about,
because it didn't matter whether you agree with his politics.
Yeah,
he was first and foremost a follower of Christ, and that's what he actually preached about the most, of anything. If you'd listen to him, I mean, yeah, sure, like, did he have views that even I like agreed with 100% of the time? No.
Well, if you ever find somebody you agree with 100%, it's probably you talking to yourself in the mirror. So like, let's be real here. So it's like, I mean, but I think there's such like a great opportunity. And if Christians take this kind of like as a challenge of like, hey, there's a world out there that didn't know about Jesus, that wasn't thinking about Jesus, that feels doomed and hopeless. If you feel like you have that answer, which we should as Christians, we should feel like we have that answer. Yeah. Like, this is an opportunity for us to be that light. Yeah. And to point people to that authentic faith. But if we're so busy, like, not saying, you know, I agree with them, but if you're too busy arguing with the way people talk about Charlie Kirk, or you're too busy arguing with the way people talk about, you know, politics on either side. Yeah. To even, you're missing the opportunity to just point to the person that Charlie Kirk was pointing to, which is Jesus Christ. Yep. Like, this is what we should be doing is, hey, you're hopeless. You don't have hope. You feel like you're lost. We have more anxiety in the younger generations than ever before. We have more depression in younger generations than ever before. Listen, as somebody who was suicidal for a lot of time in my life, Jesus is that answer. Like, I found that answer in Jesus. And if we're so focused on all the things that'll distract us, like, we're missing this amazing opportunity to help people, put them in an opportunity where they can meet the resurrected Jesus Christ. So I was like,
it's true though. And actually, I feel like this is actually a good segue into this, but when you mentioned about like mental health and mental health issues and stuff like that, that's something that I think the younger generations especially struggle with. Not that older generations didn't; they just called it different things. Yeah. But I think that, I mean, part of it I do think is because of the internet, social media, stuff like that. Everything that you feel and everything you believe gets exaggerated. But why do you think that there is a mental health crisis in America among younger people? And, like, you know, it's more nuanced and more complicated than our conversation here. But like, what are some reasons you think? Because, like, for instance, like, one study that someone I know who's a clinical counselor said to me was the fact of, like, there is a, what was it, like 300% increase of a need of, like, mental health counselors, therapists, psychologists, and all these different things just in America. Yeah. 300% increase needed to be able to fulfill the mental health crisis happening in our country and stuff. Yeah. And to me, that's insane. Like, do I like blame even half of it on, like, for instance, like, social media? I don't think so. But I do think that there's a lot of different reasons for that. But I'm just curious, like, what do you think are a couple of reasons for that, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, it's really easy to blame the internet. It's really easy to blame culture. I think people just are alone. I think people just, as a society, we have gotten worse at reaching out to each other in a genuinely meaningful way. We don't listen anymore. We listen, or we hear so that we can speak. We hear so that we can respond. Like, I'm listening to you so that I can respond to you. Yeah. We're not hearing somebody. So, and we're not available. Like, I think we struggle so much with that because I think therapy is good. So preface everything with, I think therapy could be very helpful. I think it'd be very good. But we have so much therapy terms that are just commonplace now, where it's like, oh, don't trauma dump on me. Like, we have friends telling their friends not to trauma dump on them. And it's like, if you're somebody's friend, like, you should be able to, like, especially, this is coming from a Christian worldview where like, not that we have to overburden ourselves, but, like, we're supposed to bear one another's burdens.
Yeah.
We're called to that.
And it's biblical.
So like if you're struggling, like, am I safe for you to reach out to? Have we made it like, have we made it a risk to reach out to somebody? Because if I reach out to you, what if you tell me, oh, I'm not in an emotionally ready place to be able to hear you. Not saying that that's not always like there's not times where the boundaries are important.
Yeah.
Boundaries are
But
important.
I think that that's interesting that you bring that up, because I think that that's like a lot of people's attitudes.
Yeah.
And I think it comes from a place of, I mean, part of it's selfishness.
Yeah.
But the other part is, I think, fear.
Yeah.
Because I think that people don't, and some of it has been exaggerated by the internet and stuff like that and just social media. But I think that like even with social media, you feel alone.
Yeah.
When you go on Instagram Reels, do you feel connected to people more?
No. Well, and the internet amplifies what you're already feeling.
Yep.
So like if you're already in a depressed mood and you're watching TikTok or you're on Instagram Reels or anything and you're getting depressing thing after depressing thing, like it's why like I struggle with, like I used to love like pop punk music, really sad boy music, back when in my sad boy days.
Sad boy days.
But like, it's like, it didn't make me feel better.
No.
Now, some people maybe it does, but like for me, it just made me feel worse. It made me feel like more, and I feel like we've isolated into ourselves. We don't reach out as people who are there. Like, are we there for our friends? Are we there for our neighbors? Are we there for the people that, as Christians, are we there for those that other people aren't there for? Like, okay, like this person, you know, maybe an outskirt friend of mine. Am I there for that person?
Yeah.
Or am I going to be like, well, they're not really my friend, so like, let me, you know, I think as a Christian, we're called to a better way than that.
Because like, I think that there's something to be said about the fact, especially as Christians, right? Like, yeah, sure. Are they your best friend? No. But there is something to be said about the fact that you should genuinely care for that person regardless.
Yeah. And you, like, at any given time, God is giving us the opportunity to be his light to people. So like, I think it's just, we need to be more open to each other as a society. I think young people feel alone. And I think the social media, the isolation, that doesn't help. But also like, how many times has somebody like had the thought of, I don't want to be a burden to somebody. You know, like when I was depressed, when I was struggling with suicidal thoughts, I don't want to burden you with my issues because I lost more friends during that time of my life. Like when I was in Christian circles, I lost more friends in that time of my life than ever. And you can, there might've been very good reasons for that. But I think it does kind of become like a self-fulfilling prophecy of nobody cares about me. And then people just aren't there. Yeah. So like, then we're kind of like, people isolate. Yeah. And then, I mean, the internet gives us boldness to be
what we think we are,
like even more amplified than anything. So I think there's a lot of factors that play into it, but I would say the internet doesn't help with the way that like, it's like in the way that like things are talked about. It's very doomer.
Very much so.
And then we're just not there for each other.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, yeah, the internet, have you noticed that every news source, like they don't even have a thesaurus anymore? They just kind of like say the same thing over and over again, like it's the end of the world or unprecedented move by this person. Like it's like, oh my gosh, dude.
Well, and it's also like we
pick up a thesaurus.
We become desensitized.
Very desensitized.
Well, like if
I think we actually assume bad things will happen.
Yeah, but like if nobody's clicking the article that says, well, this moderately bad thing happened, or like, hey, this like, but people are going to click at like this horrible thing happened, or like this person said this awful thing. It's like, we're very prone to like we fall into that trap of, if it's not end of the world, we don't care about it. So everything becomes end of the world.
Yeah.
But then that everything being end of the world leads to like, there's no hope.
Yeah.
You know,
which actually I think that's interesting to bring up, because my opinion is, and granted, this is a far-fetched because we don't live in this reality, right? My opinion is, let's say we theoretically didn't live in a political tumultuous time, right? Say it was just like kind of boring, let's say. let's say like our country didn't have a lot of divisive issues, maybe something like that. It's just very boring. Like the most they talked about was the tax code or something.
Yeah.
That kind of boring. I actually think that a lot of Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and these younger generations wouldn't be interested in politics at all for that reason. Because why do you think we are so involved? Why do you think we care so much? Because we do think it's the end of the world. Because we do think our planet's doomed. Because we do think all these bad things are bound to happen. Yeah. When in reality, it's like, yeah, sure. Are there terrible things that happen all the time? Yeah.
And it's a moral requirement to get involved.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it was a really silly drama on the internet. Very silly drama. Not in the grand scheme of life. Yeah. Wasn't a huge thing. And people were talking about it, and somebody was like, well, like, why are you talking about this, but not the genocide, or not this, or not this? And it's like, you get into those things where it's like, you're like, it feels like you're morally policed to have an opinion on every single thing that's going on everywhere.
Yeah.
Which goes back to the,
I don't think we're meant to have an opinion on everything.
Yeah, I don't think we were supposed to.
I think we're pressured to do that.
Yeah.
But like it's
impossible to be fully educated on every single issue everywhere in the world.
That's why I think it's weird when the news, and granted they do this because they're influential, but I think it's weird that the news will ask a celebrity, "What do you think about this bill that they're passing in Congress?" I'm sorry, like, even if that actor or the celebrity, even if I agree with them, with their opinion, like, who cares what they think, frankly? Because at the end of the day, like, yeah, sure. Can they say their opinion? I don't care. Yeah, whatever. But like, their whole world isn't even relevant to what's happening in Congress, as an example. Or like, for instance, a good example is this, right? And this is actually the people that I find really interesting. When you find someone that's so engrossed in something that they're doing, or something they're building, or something they're researching, that they don't really have an opinion about anything else because they love the one thing that they're dedicated to the most. Yeah. And I think that personally, right, because I think that this is the way God has designed us, I think that we're actually called to certain things in life. Yeah. And that's just how we click. Yeah. I mean, why do you think, I don't think that there's anything wrong with kind of obsessing over something and caring about one specific thing. Yeah. I think that because like there's no way for me to be like, I'm going to solve homelessness, I'm going to solve like world hunger, I'm going to solve like it's impossible, especially as one person, right? Like, it's like, and I think that God actually gives us desires to actually like explore problems we can solve, even if they seem small to everyone else, if that makes sense. But
yeah. Well, I think like you kind of hit on that with like, we're designed of like, as we were intended to be, if we were all in Christ, like, I mean, we're all designed to be different parts of the body of Christ. So we're all called to be like combined, like somebody's a head, somebody's a foot, somebody's an eye, somebody's a cell. Like we're all supposed to be, there's somebody out there who's the mitochondria, who's the powerhouse of the cell. Yeah. But no, like we're all called to different, like to be, I think we're called to be part of, like, passionate about what God has placed in front of us. And if the church was operating the way that we'd all like it to, every single person has their place and we're all moving together towards Jesus. Like that's where people find their purpose. The people who are like, I like to think the people, like when I found my purpose in my place in the church, and in Christ's like plan, and as I'm learning how to be a youth pastor, it's like my job isn't to be everything. No, my job is to do what I'm called to do, and empower other people to do what they're called to do. And as we do that, the church advances, the church moves forward, and like. So everybody, like, we're called to be passionate, but as often is the case when we're not in Christ, or when we have a distracted view of our faith, it's really easy to forget that we just need to be who God's called us to be in the body.
That's really good though.
So when we step outside of that,
Because I think that's the point where, and this is from the Christian perspective too, of like, that's the point, like, as soon as you get distracted, as soon as you step outside of that, you start criticizing the church.
Yeah.
And you start hating on the very thing that God loves, the church. And you start being like, oh, I could be better than my pastor. I could be better than this. I could be better than that person. And it's like, it's just constant negativity
Yeah.
throughout the body. But
And it's a cancer to the body. Like,
yeah,
when I went to first got to Tennessee, like, I mean, I had been a youth pastor. I had graduated from Bible college. Like, I felt, man, I'm the best. You know, I'm the greatest. I know it all. And like, I went to this church, and the youth pastor, his whole focus is just to love Jesus and to love people and to teach them how to love. Right. And I'm like, they don't know anything about theology. It's so weak. I like thought I was like a better, like, this is a youth pastor who's been doing it for, like, at that time, he'd been doing it for 10 years,
yeah,
10, almost 11 years. And I'm like, I'm so much better. You know, I know what I'm doing. And it wasn't until, like, and he was actually very gracious to me, and he like, called me out on my pride, and, was very like, helped restore me back to being like, you know, worthy of, you know, actually following what God was calling me to do.
yeah.
And so it was like, in that whole time, I'm like thinking like, I'm the best. But it wasn't until like I kind of stepped back and like kind of recognized like, my job is not to police how other people walk in the calling God has given them. My job is to find my place. And when I recognized that right at that point in time, my role was to be his biggest supporter, his like to pray for him, to like, if he needed something done, I'm going to be there for him. Because that was my role.
Yeah.
And as I stepped into that, and God continued to humble me into recognizing the authority that was placed above me for a reason, that's when I was like, oh my gosh, like, all these blessings are coming in my life. I'm so much like happier than I've ever been. Like, and it was like recognizing I didn't have to be everything. I could just step back and I could fill my role. And when I fill my role, that is the best place to be.
Yeah.
Even if my role is just I show up on a Wednesday night, and this was like literally what I would do. I'd show up on a Wednesday night and I'd just play games with the students.
Yeah.
I didn't preach most of the time, like I did towards the end, but like I didn't preach unless he was out sick, or he would like hurt his back, or like there was a couple things that like he was going through, or like when they went on vacation, like I didn't preach. And I was okay with that.
Yeah.
Because where I was happiest wasn't standing in front of people talking about Jesus. Where I was happiest was just building those relationships.
Yeah.
And like when I followed my role, God blessed me. And I think if we as a church stop trying to be everything, and stop trying to be the one like that's criticizing everything, or like, well, that could have been better. That could have been better. Yeah, probably. We can all improve, but when we recognize what's my place in the body of Christ, oh, my place is to stack the chairs. I'm going to be the best chair stacker I can be. It's when we do that, that's when God is able to like really show the world, what we're called to be, which is love. I don't know.
No, I agree, because I think the times when I felt the most content is when I've realized my place. And I've realized like, oh, this is a place where I can belong, but also grow.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So I think that it just comes down to the fact of like the younger generation, I think, needs a realization of what's real, as you said, and what real authenticity, godly authenticity. Cause like, you know, there's different forms of authenticity, definitely.
Yeah.
But what godly authenticity looks like, regardless of denomination. Because honestly, I don't care what denomination you join, just as long as you are a Christian, just as long as you are able to realize the great love that God has for you. Because that's all that matters ultimately. Because like when we die, are we going to be asked, were you part of the Assemblies of God? No. Were you a Baptist? No. Were you a Catholic? No. He's going to ask you, how did you know me? He's going to ask you, did you know me? How did you show love to the least of these? And then hopefully if we were able to surrender our will to his, he's going to say, well done, good and faithful servant. And I think that's just a beautiful reminder of the fact. And I think America actually overall is realizing this, at least like culturally between Christians, is like realizing, you know what, you might be a different denomination, but we have a lot of things in common. That hasn't been the case in America for the longest time.
Yeah.
Like we used to be very like, oh, well, you're a Baptist. Oh, well, you're Catholic. So I want nothing to do with you. And now that there's been this paradigm shifting, part of it is because of politics, but
Yeah.
I think a big part of it is realizing, and I think personally it's realizing, you know, there's an end coming to this world. There's an end coming to the time that we're in. And I think that we're expecting God to move in a powerful way above our denominations and above anything that we could fit our human agenda into. But as we kind of like close this conversation and stuff like that, I kind of want to ask about just like, how are we like, and for me, you know, like I'm not really talking about Gen Z in particular, but from my perspective, maybe Gen Alpha, how are we supposed to kind of like help the next generation along this journey of trying to find Christ in the midst of this political polarization and in the midst of just like basically a chaotic society that's just like filled with doom and despair all the time? Like, because like not all of us are called to be youth pastors. Not all of us are called to even do children's church or whatever. So how do you think people can get involved with that? Whether it just be their church, whether it be someone that they might disciple, like how do you think the best way people should be able to influence the next generation?
Yeah, you can never underestimate the power of just consistently trying to open that communication, because the next generation is hard to reach sometimes. They're hard to connect with. I think for me, if I were to like be talking to somebody in the church, like consistency, praying for them, saying encouragement to them, you know, opening that line of communication that you're praying for them, that you care about them. I think that's going to go farther than people realize.
Oh yeah.
It's when it's when the older generation is intimidated by the younger people, and the younger people, because like, the younger people are not going to go up to you. The younger people are not going to, in general, some of them will, but like in general, the next generation is not going to walk up to you. But are you willing to step out and be like, even though I'm not serving in those ministries, you can still give them a smile and say hello and ask them about them.
Exactly. Yeah. I think too, like, at least from my perspective growing up, since I'm Gen Z, I think the most influential people in my life were just simply people who encouraged me. Yeah. Just simple encouragement.
The power of encouragement is huge.
It is huge. And we downplay it all the time. We're just like,
who would have thought that the solution to maybe, you know, some of this anxiety and depression that our young people are facing would just be encouraging them,
right?
Not just in their walk, but just in who God has created them to be.
100%. It's a huge. Yeah. I mean, why do you think Paul made such a big deal about Barnabas?
Yeah. Well, and you know, all throughout the New Testament, it's encouraging each other in the Lord, encourage each other.
Encourage each other. Yeah. Yeah. So it's just, I think that's just the reality of just like realizing that influence the next generation isn't as grandiose as it seems. Isn't as like a hard as it seems.
And it doesn't take, I have to be in youth group with them in order to do it. You can, in passing on a Sunday, if you stack enough of those Sundays on top of each other, I promise you'll see a difference.
100%. Yeah. But yeah, so thank you so much for joining me for this episode. It's been just an amazing time and great time, honestly. It was fun. Sometime I'm going to have you on, and we're going to just like do deep dives into theological things, conspiracies, because I think that'll be fun.
That'll be fun.
But thank you so much for joining me for this episode with Pastor Nathan Franklin. And next week, I'm going to have Dr. Modica on, and we're going to talk about different societal issues and politics, of course, as always. But thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned.